Vicente leaves a trail of destruction in town. East Rail passengers stranded at train stations during the storm. And China sets up a new city on disputed islands in the South China Sea.
Good evening. The standby signal number 1 is now in force as Tropical Storm Vicente moves further away from Hong Kong. The observatory says occasional gale force winds may still be felt on high ground, but the storm is expected to weaken further as it crosses the Guangxi region in South China.
Vicente continues to move inland and weaken. The outer rain bands of Vicente are still affecting the coastal areas of Guangdong, bringing squally showers and thunderstorms to these areas. In the next few days, we will still be affected by the outer rain bands of Vicente.
Vicente caused widespread damage in Hong Kong when it swept through the territory yesterday and this morning. Evelina Leung has the details.
Vicente, the strongest storm to hit Hong Kong in 13 years, has departed. But not before leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The Northern New Territories is among the hardest hit areas. Here on this farm in Shangshui, crops have been submerged in water. The farm owner said he suffered massive losses. The storm started brewing on Monday. The observatory issued the number 8 northeast gale or storm signal at 5:40 yesterday afternoon. After that, winds continued to strengthen. At Henfa-chun in Taiwan, strong winds nearly swept people off their feet. Some had to walk in pairs in order to make it to their homes. 5 hours later, the number 9 increasing gale or storm signal was issued. And shortly before 1 o'clock this morning, the observatory issued the number 10 hurricane signal. The tropical cyclone warning was lowered to a number 8 signal 2 hours later. However, gusty winds and heavy downpours were still evident in the city center. Street lamps were torn apart, trees were uprooted, and for some, getting back home was a real challenge. Close to 200 people sought medical treatment at accident and emergency units overnight. Evelina Lang, TVB News.
Public transport has returned to normal as the typhoon moved away from the city. Still, the people of Hong Kong were scrambling to return to work when the signal number 8 was no longer in effect shortly after 10 a.m. Stephanie Wong has that story.
Morning mayhem as commutes turned more hectic than usual, even after Vicente no longer posed a threat to the city.
Please let passengers exit first.
Many people went to work an hour or two later than they normally would, and the Admiralty MTR station was packed with commuters trying to make their way to the office. Some went to catch the cross-harbor buses at Hong Kong early, and they were right to do so. By 11, the line snaked all the way along the flyover. Some managed to take things in their stride.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of people, going to be massive in the crowd, but instead of just waiting here, trying to chill and relax a little bit.
Now it's very efficient and it's very smooth transportation. It's just about delay for 1 to 2 minutes.
At the ferry piers, the gates were opened a little earlier for passengers to sit inside and rest. Some people here were left stranded at the central piers when ferry services were canceled yesterday. But trips resumed later this morning, finally giving them a chance to return home. The seas were still choppy, but that didn't stop residents of outlying islands from streaming onto shore. And while life returned to normal for Hong Kong's workforce, tourists found their visits unpleasantly extended.
We have a connecting flight from Kuala Lumpur to Jakarta because we are leaving Jakarta tomorrow morning. Just stranded. We have no idea what's going on. They should care a little bit more about their passengers because we're just sitting here.
It's supposed to be on a 3:20 flight, and hopefully it'll still be on time.
Hundreds of flights were delayed or canceled because of the storm. Stephanie Wong, TVB News.
Scores of MTR passengers were stranded at stations along the East Rail line overnight after service was suspended due to a fallen tree. Some passengers are unhappy about the situation and how it was handled, but as Temeli Tianmei reports, the MTR Corporation has defended its arrangements.
A slumber party of sorts for this group of stranded MTR passengers. There was no way for them to get home unless they were willing to weather the typhoon on foot. Their plight was the result of a falling tree on the MTR tracks near Taipo Market. The tree fell shortly after the number 9 increasing gale or storm signal took effect last night. An overhead electricity cable was damaged. Service was immediately suspended and stranded passengers were dropped off at Tai Wai Station. By then, most public transport had already been suspended. Some passengers did try to make themselves comfortable, but others were not impressed by the lack of backup arrangements, such as shuttle buses. Some of those stranded remained at the station for hours before they left. The MTR Corporation says it has done the best it could under the circumstances.
Around that time, there were no public buses running or no public transport service on road running in the areas. And so therefore, we decided that the safest ways for our passengers, for our customers, was for them to stay in the stations.
Controversy also surrounds the $200 taxi subsidy that were given to only some of the stranded passengers. But MTR representatives refused to disclose the criteria by which the recipients were determined. Temeli Tianmei, TVB News.
Vicente made landfall in Guangdong early today. It also caused major damage in the region and left 2 people dead. As Evelina Lung reports, more stormy weather is expected in the region.
Rainstorms swept through Taishan City in Guangdong at around 4 this morning as Vicente closed in. It caused flooding in low-lying areas, left trees uprooted, and traffic signs thrown onto the roads.
China today formally set up a new city on the disputed Paracel Islands in the South China Sea. The move comes amid tensions in the area sparked by territorial disputes between Beijing and its neighbors. Officials today rolled out the red carpet for the city of Sanxia in Hainan province. The municipal government of Sanxia is located on Yongxing Island, also known as Woody Island, which is the largest in the Paracels. Yongxing Island is about 300 kilometers southeast of Hainan. China and various neighboring countries and regions claim the Paracel and Spratly Islands. One of the countries involved in the dispute was talking tough yesterday. Philippine President Benigno Aquino said in a State of the Nation address his country won't back down in the dispute and is planning to upgrade its military capabilities. He also called on Beijing to respect his country's rights in the South China Sea.
The man accused of killing a dozen people at a Batman movie premiere made his first court appearance in Aurora, Colorado on Monday. Prosecutors say James Holmes could face the death penalty in what is now one of the worst gun massacres in U.S. history.
Call People versus James Holmes, 12 CR 1522. Parents.
One look at 24-year-old James Egan Holmes tells you clearly there is something not right about him. That from the family of victims who described Holmes' demeanor as a disturbing sight and called him a coward for mowing down defenseless victims. While the judge read him his rights, Holmes appeared dazed, confused, and maybe even on medication.
You have a right to remain silent. If you make any statements that can be used against you, you have a right.
Still, Holmes looked no one in the eye and said not one word. To the Syrian conflict now, world leaders have condemned a threat by President Bashar al-Assad's regime to use chemical weapons against foreign aggressors. The announcement by Damascus also suggests that Assad will continue the fight to stay in power regardless of the costs. Tony Sabine has more.
This statement from President Bashar al-Assad's government yesterday is also the first acknowledgement that his regime has chemical and biological weapons.
Any stocks of WMD or any unconventional weapon that the Syrian Arab Republic possess would never be used against civilian or against the Syrian people during this crisis. These weapons are meant to be used only and strictly in the event of external aggression against the Syrian Arab Republic.
This is typical of the complete illusion of this regime, that they are the victims of external aggression. What is actually happening is their own people are rising up against a brutal police state. It has nothing to do with any aggression from anywhere else in the world.
Other world leaders also spoke out.
It would be reprehensible if anybody in Syria is contemplating use of such weapons of mass destruction like chemical weapons. I sincerely hope that the international community keep an eye on this so that there will be no such things happen.
We will continue to make it clear to Assad and those around him that the world is watching and that they will be held accountable by the international community and the United States should they make the tragic mistake of using those weapons.
The bombshell by the Assad regime also came after the Arab League offered the Syrian leader and his family a safe exit if he agrees to step down. Rebels say diplomatic solutions to end the crisis have now been exhausted.
Now there is only two solutions, either to have a direct intervention or to really support and weaponize the rebels and the Free Syrian Army to finish this war as soon as possible.
Tony Sabine, TVB.
係你啦 ！TVB.com Amazing